One called Data Everywhere, Mining the Web for Resources, you have to find out where you can go online in order to get data. So we're going to start by going and using Google Tables. So you'll notice I've gone to research.google.com/tables, and it brings me a search bar, and as is shown in the book, you can take a look at like Olympic swimming records. And when you do that, it will give you a list of places that you can find data, and it'll say show more, 10 rows, 4 columns of data, and if I click on that, it'll show me like the record count, so how many records each person has, the name of the person, their nationality, and the events that they've won. And I can export that data and I can download it. If I go back up to the top, you'll see it's organized in a different way. 50-meter freestyle, 100-meter freestyle, the record is listed, the person who holds that record, and then the nation they're from and the games. So this is one way to get data. So if we try, say, iOS adoption, and we think about the device that people might have, like if you have an iPad 2G, looks like that represents 22.6% of the data when this was taken, and 68% of those people are using iOS version 8, 25.8% are using version 7, and 3.7% are using version 6. When you go down to the bottom and you look at the iPad mini 3, what you'll notice is that although only 0.9% were using it, 100% of those people were on iOS version 8. And so we can start to look at this and try and think about why these numbers might tell the story that they do, and of course that's the activity. But there are other places you can go get data, and we provided 2 additional links for you. So one is to go to NOAA's Center for Environmental Information, and you can see you can get the monthly normals, the daily normals, the annual seasonal normals, and hourly normals. So I might say, well, what's the daily normal? And I have to go down and do this. At least this data set is for the United States. So I'll click on Pennsylvania. And then it gives me a list of towns. And since I'm in York, I'm going to choose the York Airport. And then I can pick a particular month that I want. And so when I do that, what's going to happen is I'm going to get the data for that particular month. And so this gives me the maximum temperature, the average temperature, and the minimum temperature plotted in what looks like degrees Fahrenheit, and I can tell from the table that each is in degrees Fahrenheit, and then over the days of the month, and since I chose June, there are 30 days in that month. And so we can start to make determinations from this. And again, you can look back and find this data. It goes from 1971 through 2000, and the climate, actually this goes from 1981 to 2010. It replaced what was there before. And then the third place we give you to look for data is data.gov. Now data.gov doesn't actually hold the data. It will point you towards government's open data. So you can see that there are a number of categories that you can look through. Since the MMS mission deals with space weather, let's just take a look at that. So if I type in space weather, it will bring up sites that have data related to it. And what you'll notice is a lot of this data comes from NOAA. So we'll take a look at space environmental data. And again, what I want to point out is that data.gov doesn't house the data, but it does tell you where you can go to get the data. And so where it says space weather, I might say visit data or visit site, and it'll take me out to a place where I can find this. So for example, solar imagery is kind of interesting. This might give us a picture of what the sun's activity was. And so if we look at, we could look at the alpha or sunspot drawings. That might be interesting. So you have to dig deep in order to find it. And what you might find is, like when you look in these, is that they're given by years. And so if I go into this and I go into, say, 2015 and January of 2015, the dates are given, and I can take a look at what the sunspot activity was on, say, January 9th, 2015. And this data goes back pretty far, as I'll show you in a moment. And so you can start to measure it and see how scientists actually took their data. So you could assign each student to take a look at the sunspot activity and then see what happened excuse me, over the course of time. And so if we go back here a second and we continue back, what you'll notice is that this particular folder went back to 1979. But if we look in here, this data goes back to 1966, and then others go back even further. Here's data from 1859 and 1860. So the data is extensive in terms of what you have. So that's how you can mine the web for data.